Hello, my name is Emmanuel Munsanje, coming with yet another topic in costing, which is chapter 8, variances. When you look at a variance is simply a difference. A difference of what? First and foremost, you make a budget. When you make a budget, it means you make a plan to buy something, and that is on paper. But when you actually buy, that is the actual price. The difference between the planned or standard and the actual price is called variance. Like you see, a budget is simply a plan. You plan something, but when you execute, it may be different from something that is very actual. Hence, the difference is a variance. A variance may be adverse, maybe not in your favor, or it may be favorable. For example, if I want to buy shoes, I budget 10 kwacha. That is on paper. That is the standard cost. But when I go to the shop, shoes are costing 8 kwacha. There's a difference, or there's a variance between what I planned and what I found on the ground. The difference is 2 kwacha. Since the shoes are cheaper than I had budgeted for, the difference of 2 kwacha is positive, which is called favorable, and the opposite is true. For example, if I budget that the shoes will cost me 10 kwacha, that's on paper. But when I go to look at the actual thing on the market, on the ground, I find that actually the shoes are 12 kwacha. I'm down by 2 kwacha. That is still called variance, but it's negative because I have a shortage, and that is called adverse. You are going to see the use of the word adverse and favorable. Variance analysis, this is the screening or the comparison of the budgeted and the actual and why they arise. It's very important to understand why variances arise. There are many ways in which you can execute variances. For example, direct labor total material variance can be calculated. Direct material rate variance. The difference here is that there is a word I've underlined which is total in terms of material. But in terms of material, again, there's a word I've underlined which is called rate. So those are very crucial terms to take note. But over and above, when you look at the variances, it's about the comparison of what you planned to buy and what you actually bought. Now let's get closer and see the examples on how we calculate the variances. Product X has a standard or budgeted direct material cost as follows. 10 kg of material Y at 10 kwacha per kg, the total being 100 kwacha per unit of X. Now, during period 4, 1,000 units of X were manufactured using 11,700 kilograms of material Y, which cost 98,000 kwacha 600. Let me elaborate something here. When you look at a product, it is called product X in this case. So you need 10 kg of material Y for this unit, but there's a rate at which you buy this material, which is 10 per unit. So 10 by 10, 100. When you look at period 4, you're looking at the actual units you produced. And you're looking at the actual kgs you used. And you're looking at the actual cost you used. The variance will come about by the comparison of the actual and the budgeted. Now, you are required now to calculate the following variances. Calculate A, the direct material total variance. B, the direct material price variance. C, the direct material usage variance. Therefore, let's take cognizance of the words that have been underlined vis-a-vis total, price, usage. Let's see how this one is done. On the solution, when you look at the direct material total variance, you pick the total cost, 100, which you multiplied 10 by 10. As the product, each unit would need 100 kwacha. Therefore, the total budgeted bill is 100 by 1,000 units you produce is 100,000 kwacha. That's as per budget. But actually you spent 1,600. Therefore, the variance of the difference between the budgeted cost of material and the actual is 1,400 favorable, meaning it worked in your favor. You didn't have a shortage. Material price variance. The word price there will give you a sense in which you are using a rate like 10 per kg. That's a rate. So as per budget, the rate is 10 kwacha per kg. Therefore, the planned or the budgeted cost using that rate is 10 by 11,700 actual one. You would have used 117,000, but you used 98,600. The difference is the variance, which is 18,400. And when you come to direct material usage variance, as you look at usage, what should be in your mind there is the quantity. For example, you use 10 kg per unit. So for 1,000 units, you would have used 10 by 1,000. 10,000 is what you planned or you budgeted. But in actual sense, you actually used 11,700 kg. Therefore, the variance is the difference, and you cost it at the rate, which will give you 17,000, and that is adverse. Adverse means you'll have a shortage or it's something that is not in your favor. Now, there's a summary. There's a sense in which these interface. When you look at the price variance, it's 18,400 already calculated. Usage variance, 17,000 adverse. Total variance, 1,400. So when you look at that, that's a summary of what you actually calculated. We also have variances in terms of labor. The variance concept is about the difference. But in this case, you're looking at the difference between what you planned to spend on labor versus what you actually spent. For example, the standard direct labor cost per product is as follows. You need 2 hours of grade Z labor at 5 kwacha per hour, which will give you a total of 10 kwacha per unit of the product. Now, during period 4, which is the actual work, 1,000 units of product X were made, and the direct labor cost of grade Z labor was 8,900 for 2,300 hours. Now, in a very similar way, that period 4, all those components are derived from what you actually executed on the ground. Therefore, you are required to calculate the following variances. Number A, the direct labor total variance. Number B, the direct labor rate variance. Number C, the direct labor efficiency variance. Now, look at the direct labor total variance. Again, you highlight the word total because the total is when you multiply, the bigger number that you have there. So as per budget, we would have used 10 total expense on labor 10, but then you produce 1,000 units, you would have used 10,000, but you actually produced 8,900, and the difference is 1,100. That is favorable. For direct labor rate variance, the rate you're using 5 kwacha per hour. Where there's the word per, that's the signal that you're using the rate. So the rate variance, you use the data which has the word per. So if you were to spend 5 kwacha per hour, and going by the actual hours you multiply, you would have spent 11,500 because you budgeted 5 kwacha per hour and the actual hours came out to be 2,300. If you went by that, you would have spent 11,500. But then you did spend 8,900. Therefore, the difference is the variance, which is 2,600 and is favorable. Because what you spend actually is less than what you budgeted for. That's why it is favorable. For the direct labor efficiency variance, the key word for efficiency is time. Therefore, per unit, you needed to spend 2 hours. For 1,000 units is 2 by 1,000, you get 2,000. But then you did spend 2,300. Therefore, the variance is 300 hours by 5. You get 1,500, and that is adverse. The summary is similar to what we actually saw. The red variance, which is favorable or positive. The efficient variance, which is adverse. And then you get the difference of 1,100 in favor of what is more, in this case, what is favorable. idle time. Idle time is the time when you are doing nothing. Maybe there's machine breakdown, or there's a problem, or there's a shortage of materials. That is always adverse. When you look at the example, the standard direct labor cost for the product is as follows. You need 2 hours of grade Z labor at 5 kwacha per hour, which will give you 10 kwacha per unit of products. Now, during the period, you have 1,500 units of product X that were made, and the direct labor cost of grade Z was 17,000 for 308 hours. During the period, however, there was a shortage of customer orders, resulting in 100 hours as idle time. Required, calculate the following variances: the direct labor total variance, the direct labor rate variance, the idle time variance, and the direct labor variance. Now, the computations are very similar. Variances is about comparison. When you look at the direct labor total variance, you are looking at 1,500 hours should have costed 1.5 by, you spend a total of 10 kwacha per unit, 15, but you spent that, the difference is the variance. When you look at the direct labor rate variance, remember the rate, you're looking at something which is followed by the word per. This one per hour, this one per. So the per will guide you that this is where you do the variance looking at the rate. So 5 kwacha by 3,000, it would have been 15,400, but you did 17. The difference is the variance. Now, for idle time, always it is adverse because it's really like you haven't done anything. It's just a cost that is there. The direct labor efficiency, efficiency is about time. 1,500 and you need 2 hours per hour, you would have spent 3,000 hours, but you did spend 2,980. Remember, you subtract the idle time and then you get the variance which you cost at the labor rate. The summary is similar there. Where you look at the variances, you have direct labor, which is adverse, idle adverse, direct labor efficiency favorable, and the direct there. So this one is just a summary or just added advantage. It is very similar when you are dealing with variable production overhead variances. The language, the analogy is just similar. Suppose that the variable production overhead cost of product is as follows. You need 2 hours at 150 and to 3 per unit. Then during period 6, 4,000 units of products were made. The labor force worked 820 hours, of which 60 were recorded as idle time. The variable cost was 1,230. Similar calculations. You're required to calculate the variable overhead total variance, the production overhead expenditure variance, the variable production overhead efficiency variance. Now, when you check very clearly, there's a word total which appears in all variances. In this case, instead of rate, there's expenditure and there's efficiency. Efficiency is associated with time, total is associated with what you spend per unit, and the rate is associated with pay something. Now, look at it. Overhead total variance, you look at 400 units which you produce, you would have costed 3 per unit. Now, 3 is the total. Then you compare with what it did cost, and then the variance is the difference, which is 30 and is adverse. When you look at production overhead expenditure variance, you're looking at the rate here, which is 1.150. And of course, you subtract the idle time because they don't matter there. And then you compare, you get 19. The variable production overhead efficiency variance. Efficiency is about time. For 400, you would have spent 2 kwacha per hour, you get 800. And you did spend 760 hours, and then you have those hours and you cost at the rate, you get the variance there, which are adverse. And then you have a summary, as it were, which is similar to that, but then it's a collection of what you've actually been doing. Even for fixed overhead variance, it's a similar story. The fixed overhead variance behaves in a very similar way with the variances that we've looked at, in terms of the comparison of what you budgeted and what you actually spent, and the difference is the variance. This is where we actually end, and I leave this one as your homework in order to try and see how far you've understood in the costing. The solution actually is there for you, where you analyze it and you're going to see how it really follows. But then the bigger picture is that the variances are about differences between what you budget and what you actually execute. Thank you very much.